All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for tonight's broadcast, Insanely Air 13, and we are preparing to get underway here for tonight's GT3 Pro race for the X League here at Suzuka. Before we get too deep into this, let's go ahead and look at the championship standings as they are right now. Again, if you remember, our dominant driver, our lead driver in the championship ended up missing our last race at Spa, which has really kind of shaken up the way that the championship has shaken out. Real quickly, let's go ahead and take a quick look at it. Starting from the team's championship, Dodge is still last out of the 7 with 86 points. Porsche is 6th with 120. BMW is 5th with 150. Then you get to a jump. Ferrari is actually closing down on Chevy for 3rd, as Ferrari has 311 points and Chevrolet has 349 points. Second place is Aston Martin, who has slipped back that far with only 404 points, and Ford now is taking over a commanding lead in the Manufacturers' Championship with 483 points. Then we look at the Drivers' Championship. 25th is Capsule Healer with 5 points. 24th is SSR Quinn with 7 points. 23rd is Arrow with 13 points. 22nd is Homender and Keflex 500 and Yokomuku. Those three are all in a three-way tie for 20th with 18 points each. 19th is TCPP Photo with 26 points. 18th is NDL Shadow with 29 points. 17th is Savage with 32 points. 16th is Diesel with 34 points. 15th is Car Rebuilds with 36 points. 14th is Lil Kid Suave, who has been given a early release from the 3-week ban he had, so he is on probation for the rest of the season. He is at 39 points right now. 13th is CLN Clinical with 42 points. 12th is Keflex 500 milligrams. He is at 45 points. I don't think that's right because there's two different Keflexes on this. I'll hope to get that adjusted later. Rebirth is 11 with 49 points. 10th is Wiza 4 with 61 points. 9th is Dex Kalula with 91 points. 8th is Indiel Violet with 108 points. 7th is Tempered Ship with 110 points. 6th is Car Matthew with 118 points. 5th is Breezy Rain with 123 points. 4th is Maze with 190 points. He missed last week's race. He has dropped him to 4th, but there is a high likelihood he might be able to get 3rd back. Despite that, as 3rd place is Manuel Pedro. He is only at 192 points right now. Twilight, after missing last week's race, is stuck at 235 points, and the championship lead has now been handed over to Les Railgun with 253 points. With 3 races left in the season, he leads by 18 points. Again, an 18-point lead real quickly as I go ahead and pull up the information here on how points are awarded. If you'll give me just a second. Okay, well, I can't seem to find it, sadly, but the difference is only about 5 points between top, I think it's 10, I can't find it! One minute, this Discord is way too convoluted. I'm just saying. Points, there we are. Yeah, the gap between finishing 1st and 2nd is 4 points. So, and the gap between 1st and 3rd is a 7-point swing. So, if Twilight wins every remaining race, but our lead Ford driver, who is event driver list, where is he? Les Railgun, yeah. If Railgun finishes 2nd every week and Twilight wins every main race, that only closes the points gap down by 12 out of the mandated 18 points that would need to be closed by. Even if Twilight got fastest lap in the remaining 3 races, that would still only close it down to 15 points. Frankly, it could be a 2nd, and a 3rd result for Les Railgun with Twilight winning every main race, and Railgun would still steal the championship this season. So again, it's not an easy lockout. We know that Twilight has the ability to do that, but he has to lock in and he has to make it happen. That willingness to show up to every race looks like it might be what gets him back-to-back championships. I know some drivers will probably look at this season and be like, well, yeah, but we all know that Twilight was the better driver and should have won this. But missing a race is incredibly critical when your closest rival, even if he's 2 seconds a lap behind you on pace, is still faster than everybody else, because he's going to be able to shore up easy high points results and can spring the moment you miss an event, especially with the season being as short as it is, only 10 races. In tonight's event, we are looking at, I believe, a 17-car field. Might only be 16, but 17-car field. So if it ends up being a 15-car field, everyone gets at least 1 point. But if we have 16 or 17 drivers, anyone finishing outside the top 15 does not get points in tonight's race. So do be aware of that. Normally, those spots are usually taken by people with dropouts, but it is still something to keep an eye on tonight. So we're standing by right now, waiting for everything to get underway on track here. There are going to be a handful of new drivers showing up tonight in tonight's event. For those of you who watched our race last night, you saw Ivy Franks and House of Pud put on a little fun battle for few spots in the midfield at the end of the Suzuka Porsche Cup race. They will be making their first GT3 starts tonight as basically rental drivers, you could look at like that. Another driver who is making their first run is going to be Bruno Mello YZ. He is going to be another Ferrari entrant, joining the likes of Indiel Violet and Manuel Pedron. Again, the Ferrari has closed in quite a bit on the Chevrys in the Teams Championship. So while it seems all but guaranteed that the Ford is going to lock up the Teams Championship fight a race early, there is a possibility that the fight is on for third in the Teams Championship between the Chevrolet and the Ferrari team. Aston Martin hangs out in second. If they have another atrocious race like they did at Spa, they could end up falling behind Chevy or Ferrari. But again, those two teams need to be on top of it, bringing home multiple podiums, basically locking out 2 of the top 3 podium steps in tonight's race and the remaining 2 races. I'm not saying that can't happen. It just doesn't seem very likely to happen. Still waiting on Bruno Mello and Indiel Violet to properly ready up before we get underway for our race tonight here. Well, it looks like Bruno's already readied up, so now they're just waiting on Indiel Violet, and then we should be loading onto the circuit. But while we wait, we're going to go ahead, take a Twitch-mandated ad break, and when we come back, hopefully they will be doing the pace lap here at Suzuka. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and as you can see, our pace car driver tonight is XR Monaco. As usually, want to go ahead and say a quick thank you to XR Monaco for performing pace car duties. Your pole, once again, is Dex Twilight. Aston Martin has won pole in every single race this season without fail, pretty much. So, the only time that Twilight has not sat on the pole, it was his teammate, Dex Kalula, who got the pole. That was last week at Spa. So, yes, Aston has won the pole every single race this season. Second place in qualifying, though, NDL Violet. He had an accident, or at least a prolonged spin, during his first lap in qualifying, but he pulled it all together. And on the final lap, he put himself in second on the grid. Third place is going to be Breezy Rain, best of the Chevrolet qualifiers. But again, with the Ferrari team starting to loom behind the Chevys in the Manufacturers Championship, this is not good enough. He needs to figure out a way to get by Violet as quickly and effectively as possible. Then you have Tempered Chip, who actually ended up outqualifying his teammate Railgun. So Tempered Chip is going to be the highest qualified for GT. In tonight's race, he will be in row 2, while row 3 will have Les Railgun, who is fighting to win the championship, but he needs to come home second at least tonight. And then he's going to be alongside Dex Kalula. His focus will try to be to hold up Les Railgun by any chances necessary. Excuse me. Seventh place starter will be the newcomer Ferrari driver Bruno Mello YZ. He is the second highest of the Ferrari starters. Behind him will be Car Matthew, who is in another one of the Chevys tonight. Just behind him is... No, wait, Car Matthews a Ford. Yeah, Car Matthews here in a Ford. I was like, there's no way, that's not a Chevy driver. Yeah, Car Matthews is the last of our 3 Ford entrants, so all 3 Fords qualifying in the top 2/3 of the grid. May's going to be starting in 9th tonight. He is normally the head driver in the Chevy camp. Missed all the races last weekend as he was just busy with real life, but he is looking to try and get back into 3rd in driver points and bring his team up to 2nd in manufacturers. Starting 10th will be Wiza Ford. The BMW showed a lot of pace last week at Suzuka. Wiza seems to think that he's got a little bit of something figured out in the BMW and can bring home an even better result tonight. Keep an eye on that. Behind him will be Manuel Pedro. Pedro's finally won his first X-League event last night at Suzuka in the Porsche Cup. Now the question is, can he make something like that happen in the GT3 events? But with Twilight here tonight, I don't think that's likely. Lil Kid Suave back after his ban. He is back in the Porsche team. Behind him is Savage, last of the Chevrolet entrants tonight. Les Aguirre is showing up in the Porsche team. CLN Clinical is showing up the last of the Aston Martins. House of Pud in the BMW tonight, and Ivy Franks rounding out the back of the field in the Porsche. So again, reminder, House of Pud and Ivy Franks, they are newcomers. This is their first weekend of the series, as I believe it is the very first race period for Bruno Mello YZ as well. As the field is doubled up as they come through the KCO Triangle Chicane, coming to the start-finish line, will be a 31-lap affair. Soft tires expected to last 6 laps. Medium tires expected to last 9 throughout the race. Down the front straightaway. Just about 9 rows all doubled up as they come to the start-finish line. Green flag is out and we are underway here at Suzuka. So can Violet outrun Twilight into turn 1 around the outside? Well, he's in a dead heat with the Aston, but the outside line, typically not the ideal way to go. He goes deep and slides wide. He's in the dirt. One of the 4 GTs are in the dirt farther back as well, and it is chaos in the middle of the grid. There's a Porsche going off. That's Suave. Suave gets knocked off circuit by another Porsche right off the back, and he goes right to the rear of the grid. Dex Twilight immediately into first spot. NDL Violet runs second. Breezy Rain third. Tempered Chip fourth. Les Railgun's already gotten ahead of Dex Kalula, and he stayed ahead of Car Matthew, but he now has to see if he can get Tempered Chip to let him by. Railgun needs to focus on finishing second by all means necessary to protect his championship lead. Breezy Rain has just gotten by NDL Violet on the run down to the Degners, so Chevy now moves up into second spot, so a little bit of improvement for the Chevy team. Still trying to stay ahead of Ferrari for third in the Manufacturers Championship. That is going to probably be the biggest fight to keep an eye on, because it is the one that is arguably the most volatile right now. And remember, X-League pays out money to the top 3 finishers in the Drivers' Championship, and the top 3 teams in the Manufacturers' Championship get first picks on drivers for the following season. Breezy Rain 1 second out already from Dex Twilight. May is already creeping up the grid. He's up to 8th position right now. He is ahead of both of the other Ferraris that are not Violet right now. Tempered Chip still holding on over Les Railgun. I'm really shocked that Chip hasn't been told to move over and let Railgun through here. Going down the back straightaway for the first time. Looks like Suave has gotten ahead of House of Pud and Ivy Franks and CLN Clinical, despite being knocked off early on here. As Tempered Chip pulls up behind Violet, now looks to the outside, side by side as they go into the KCL triangle. Door-to-door contact, Ford versus Ferrari. And that Ferrari very nearly gets run off circuit. Here comes Kalula with a huge hit out of the steam. Tempered Chip's gonna fly out of here fine, but the entire field right behind him is all glutted together. No one really has a good idea where to go. This could still end up being a bit of a mess here. Kalula trying to make something happen on the outside there of Violet, and he is able to keep the car on track much better. Tempered Chip not letting Railgun through, though. That Aston tried to keep it wrapped around the outside. He held it around turn 1, but fell behind Violet again through turn number 2. Tempered Chip now up into the 3rd spot. Railgun in 4th. Violet has gone from 2nd to 5th in a lap. So while it seemed like he had good single lap pace in racing conditions, it does not seem like the results that he needs are in this car right now. Twilight is only 1.2 seconds out, and that's a slide off. Violet is off circuit. Violet's off circuit. He's able to regain the car back onto the track before it gets too bad, but now he is under threat from Maze. Maze in the Chevrolet pulls up behind the Ferrari. Nose to tail between the two of them as they come through second Degner now. The Ferrari has good enough acceleration coming out of the corner, though. But for the Ferraris, they are both plummeting through the grid. Bruno hasn't really changed his position, but Violet has slipped back to 7th. Manuel Pedro is back there in 13th, so the Ferraris are not looking good, while the Chevys seem to be on the up and up right now. Yes, Breezy Rain in 2nd is still doing a good job holding station over the 4 GTs of Tempered Chip and Les Railgun. Car Matthews is the 3rd Ford GT, and he's already up into 6th position. So the Fords run in 3rd, 4th, and 6th right now. Aston's run 1st, 5th, and I believe 17th right now. Wiza has just gotten by Les Aguera. Now we're seeing Savage trying to make the same overtake as well. Again, only the top 15 finishers get points. This isn't quite at the rear of the grid, but if they keep racing like this and they send each other off circuit, it will become the fight at the rear of the grid. But for now, it looks like Aguirre's just barely able to keep Savage behind him, and now Pedro's going to try and work around. Pedro really seems to be struggling in the Ferrari right now. He gets touched from behind by a little kid Suave there, but Pedro pulls up right behind the Chevrolet, but he's really sliding out of the rear of that car. Farther up the grid, Tempered Chip still holding station over Railgun as they go through turns 1 and 2. And that is Dex Kalula running right behind. Again, Kalula's main focus, I would imagine, would be to do whatever he can to try and keep Railgun from picking up positions. The more spots behind that Railgun is relative to Twilight, the less likely it is that Railgun can steal this season's championship. And that would be Kalula's focus, as Kalula is Twilight's teammate. He gets on the rear wing of the Ford, gives him a little bit of a shove in the S's, gives him another shove just to come to this big sweeper. And Railgun very nearly got into the dirt. Kalula is still right over there. He was harassing that number 67 machine right now. Now down to the Degners. And while this is all happening, Tempered Chip is able to hold steady in 3rd, and Dex Twilight continues to scoot away in the lead of this race. Let's go ahead and look at the tire wear right now for the entire field. Already just about 30% wear for Dex Twilight in the lead. 2nd place, who is Breezy Rain, he is at 30% already. Tempered Chip, who runs in 3rd position, highest of the 4 GTs right now, he is at 29% tire wear, so he's doing a little bit better. Les Railgun, who runs in 4th position, 29% and only barely at 29 as well. Then you have Dex Kalula, 2nd highest of the Astons, 31% wear. So the Astons once again seem to have a bit of a tire life disadvantage. Car Matthew in 6th, 31% wear on the rear tires. Then you get Violet, who's in this fight with Maze still. He's at 21%, so Violet likely put on harder compound tires to jump onto an alternate strategy. The driver he's fighting with Maze, who's gotten to his insides to come down to 130R, he's up 31%. So yeah, Violet may be the only driver on the field right now who is on a harder compound tire, and that is Bruno Mello YZ, sorry, who's behind him. He is at 33%. So yeah, right now, Violet is the only driver on this harder compound tire and still fighting very aggressively in the midfield here, trying to stay ahead of Bruno, his one-off teammate tonight, and also trying to stay ahead of Maze. But here comes Bruno. He's going to look to the inside. 3 wide, 2 Ferraris and a Chevy as they come down to turn 1. Violet's in the middle of this. He's going to back out. He's not willing to go for anything crazy. The Chevy goes wide, and Violet has to back out of it. Violet is just being so cautious, not trying to run over other drivers. He's just hemorrhaging time. And those hard tires are not helping him one bit. Yeah, I don't see this strategy really working out for Violet unless there ends up being some yellow at some very opportune times for him. The gap that Twilight has over Breezy Rain is now 3.5 seconds. Tempered Chip runs in third. Railgun right behind him in fourth. Kalula right behind him in fifth. This fight for third position, very intense right now. Again, I'm really shocked that they have not told Tempered Chip move over and let Railgun go, because Railgun is fighting for a championship. You are not. But still, Tempered Chip is running defense against his teammate. And then you have Car Matthew just a little bit behind them, not quite close enough to do anything to this group now, as those 4 GTs really light the tires up coming out of the hairpin. Already, though, this group is about 6 seconds out of Dex Twilight, the leader, but we're at the point in the season where it doesn't matter how close you are to the drivers on track. What matters is just your finishing position, because we all kind of know where everyone's pace is. We know that as long as Dex Twilight starts a race, barring the worst strategy ever and being wrecked twice in a race, like what happened at Sunset, he wins by default every race he shows up to. The focus is really, Railgun has to get by Tempered Chip, then go up there, run down and overtake Breezy Rain, and come home with a comfortable second. If he can do that, he will be good for his championship run. And finally, the overtake happens on the back straightaway on the 4th racing lap. So Les Railgun finally moves ahead of Tempered Chip. So now Tempered Chip is going to play defense for Railgun to keep Kalula behind, so Kalula can't really mess up with Railgun's run here. Again, Railgun does not have to focus on Twilight. Now, sure, if Twilight makes a mistake, Railgun would like to be there, steal the win to further solidify his grasp on the championship. But right now, he's just playing a game of managing his points loss throughout the rest of the season. His goal is going to be to try and run down Breezy Rain, who is running second on track right now. Last night, it was Breezy Rain, Tempered Chip, and Manuel Pedro who were the big fighters throughout last night's race. And it looks like Kalula just got by Tempered Chip just before they got into the S's there. So Kalula showing a little bit of aggressive as now he gets to try and run down Railgun and harass Railgun again. Again, a third place result would not be the worst case scenario for Railgun, but ideally he wants to be second. He can afford a single third place result, but that would mean his next 2 results would be required to be second place finishes. That's not counting bonus points either. Big slide there for Tempered Chip. So he seems to be losing a little bit of rear grip in that 4 GT and is now being caught by his other teammate, Car Matthews here. So just like last season, the 4 GT, arguably the strongest car in the field, just Dex Twilight is kind of an alien out in no man's land in pace. No one else can match him. Kind of syncs up the competition every time he shows up, it seems. And we may have just lost a Chevrolet driver, and the fight between Chevy and Ferrari for third in Manufacturers Championship, that would be a massive blow to them. And yes, it is savage that it looks like we have lost. So that would be our first DNF for the night. So we are down to just 16 cars, and again, only the top 15 spots pay out points. The big interesting thing though, CLN Clinical is the one running in 16th right now. He is well over half a lap down at the moment. So Clinical, last in the Aston Martin camp, not doing a great job. So in Aston Martin, it is 2 drivers trying to carry the entire Aston Martin weight behind them. In Chevy, it's 2 drivers trying to carry the entire weight behind them. The Ferraris, all 3 of them are in the points, but none of them are really high in the points. Bruno is 8th, Violet is 10th, but he is on alternate strategy, and Pedro is back there in 11th. I think Violet may have finally stymied his bleeding of pace just a little bit. He has stabilized in the 10th position now after about 5 racing laps. And now we are on lap 6 of racing, 54% wear for your leader on the tire life. Again, soft tires expected to only last about 6 laps this night. We're expecting the medium tires, which is what we believe Violet is on, to last 9 laps. You try to do the math, adding up 6s and 9s to try and get to 32. Well, none of them really work out super well. And Les Aguirre lags out. So this means that Clinical is now back into the points-paying positions. So it'll be Aguirre and Savage who drop out of the event early. So Clinical guaranteed at least 1 position in 1 point in tonight's race. But yeah, so you try to do the math of adding 6s and 9s together to get to 32. None of them really seem really great. One option that you could try and do, though, go medium tires for 3 stints, go to lap 27 or so, and then throw on the softs for what would be a 5-lap run on the softs near the end. Another option might be to go 2 stints on the mediums and then 2 stints on the softs. The softs would have quite a bit of wear on them, but that would take you 15 laps and 15 laps. You'd have to figure out a way to steal an extra lap, 2 extra laps in that run. So again, no real single super optimum tire strategy in tonight's event. For Dex Twilight, looks like it's not going to be an issue, though. The pace that he has is such that he could arguably be on an inferior tire strategy and still win this race by default. The fight really is going to be between Breezy Rain and Railgun here, as Rain goes way off there in 130R, and that's going to help Railgun close in a bunch. There goes the 4GT around the outside, and Railgun goes up into the second position. And Twilight could only go 6 racing laps and 1 pace lap, and Railgun is pitting. Everyone's pitting. You can see the pace car's not moving. Just all these drivers on the soft tires, they could not go any farther. That's it. That is the life of the soft compound tire. It's only 6 laps, and mind you, that was with a pace lap early on, so it is a very tough 6 laps. Manuel Pedro staying out, though, in 10th. He also is on the medium tires. So the Ferrari's gambling big right now with Violet and Manuel Pedro now poised to end up in first and second positions, all kind of by themselves on track as everybody else in the entire grid is pitting. Weiza did not pit, interestingly enough. He is in the BMW camp. He's only at 40% wear. So Weiza also going a little bit longer. Now, he doesn't have a lot of fuel left in the car, so I think he's going to be a little bit more fuel limited than tire limited. But Weiza in the BMW, and then the 2 Ferraris of Violet and Pedro, all on alternate strategies early on here at Suzuka. And after those pit stops are done, Railgun maintains his position over Breezy Rain. This is the important thing. If Railgun finishes this race 1 spot behind Twilight, then while he would lose points, it would not be enough to massively hurt him in the championship run. Railgun is doing everything he needs to right now. The thing is, he is 7 seconds behind Twilight. He needs to hope that obviously, he would like to get by Twilight, steal a win from him. We know it's probably not going to happen because Twilight's just that much faster. But he would like to see Twilight catch the likes of Weiza or Pedro and Violet and be really held up, lose a bunch of time. We saw last season in this race that unless there was a ridiculous tire life differential, overtaking was basically impossible. Railgun is going to desperately hope that that holds true today as well. But Violet, Pedro, Weiza, all on what would now be well-worn medium compound tires, as Twilight closes in on Weiza here as they go through the spoon corner and onto the back straightaway. Again, Weiza, he is good on tires, but he doesn't have a lot of fuel left. He's only at 5.7% in the fuel tank, so my guess is that he may be willing to run on the harder compound tires, but he's not willing to push them into that 60% range that the Ferrari drivers, I think, may feel that they have no choice but to run. So Twilight's going to be held up by Weiza for a bit, but I don't think it's going to be a massive amount here. Runs right into the BMW just as they get into the KCL triangle. Just a little bit of bumper-to-bumper contact. But that Bose machine holding steady as they come out of the triangle. And now Twilight with a fantastic run. He's also going to have the draft. So does Weiza attempt to defend against the Aston Martin? No, he is not. He's going to hold the outside. Let Twilight hold the inside line side by side in the corner. And Weiza just does not have the confidence in those harder compound tires. He lets Twilight go right by with no issue. So Twilight really not held up very much by Weiza, but your leader is now NDL Violet. Lost a bunch of positions out there, and House of Pud now lags out. So he will be credited with a 15th place result. He will be our next dropout in tonight's race. And this all really helps the Aston Martin team as CLN Clinical now moves up to 14th. That's 2 points. That helps the Aston Martin stabilize their defense against the Chevys right now. Interesting enough, May's back there in 10th, 19 seconds out of the lead. He may be on track to not lead a lap tonight. He has led a lap in every GT3 Pro race that he has started this season, but with the way this is going, I don't think that's going to happen today. I think the gaps in the field have already gotten a little bit too big. So Dex Twilight already up in the 3rd spot. I look at Manuel Pedro, who runs in 2nd. He'll be the next driver who gets caught. He has 24% in the fuel tank. He's only at 52% wear on the rear tires. And I look at NDL Violet, who is leading, the leader on this alternate strategy. He is at 54% wear on the rear tires. Doing a little bit better managing the tire wear from front to rear right now. At least it's balanced on his car. Pedro doing a little bit more wear on the rears, a little bit less wear on the fronts. And obviously Dex Twilight there in 3rd. He is on nice, sticky, soft tires at the moment, and he is maintaining a gap of about 7 seconds over Les Railgun right now. But most importantly for Railgun, he has gotten well clear of Kalula. He's just clicking off laps in clean air. As long as Weiza and the Ferraris don't end up interfering, he can still steal an easy 2nd place result tonight. And it looks like we've now lost CL in Clinical. So we are now down by 4 drivers, and Clinical is only going to be recorded with a 14th place finish. He does get points for the team, but it's not going to be a massive amount. Only 2 points for the Aston Martin team. Weiza pitting out of 4th position, so he will not be a factor against Les Railgun. So Railgun is going to be back into running in clean air. The focus now on Dex Twilight. How long will it take for him to get by Manuel Pedro and NDL Violet? Violet has really stretched out the life of these medium tires much farther than we thought. He is at 57% wear and still going. He's gone 10 laps on this rubber here. And Twilight has caught Pedro. Now he has to get by him. He's really being held up right now in the S's, though. Pedro won last night's race, but there is no competition with Dex Twilight. Around the inside, just goes right by. No grip issue whatsoever. And already he pulls 3/10 on Pedro and Jess Degner 2 alone. And mind you, Twilight is burning up his own tires, but they still have some life in them. He's still going to be good for a while. I imagine at the rate this is going, he's going to catch Violet by the next lap. But the thing for Violet, he has gone 10 laps on this set of tires. Twilight could only go 6 laps, and that was with a pace lap early on. Violet's been able to go 9 laps plus the pace lap, so Violet is going to be in a fantastic position when it comes to tire life. I just don't know if there's really a viable strategy he can pull out of it. When he pits, he will have 22 laps left. Again, you can't really cut 9s and 6s into cleanly making a 22. An 18, sure, you can do that. But a 22, just not quite there. Side by side between the two of them. Twilight on the inside, Violet on the outside. As they come down to 130R, Violet's not even going to try and fight him. Twilight goes back into the lead. So we've only had 2 race leaders, and they were our top 2 starters, Twilight and Violet. But they are both running on wildly alternate strategies. Now, reminder, last season, softs were way better than the medium tires. Violet himself said before the race got underway during practice that, hey, the softs are still the way to go. So the fact that he has jumped on the mediums really makes me think that he either has no confidence in anything whatsoever and he's just trying an alternate strategy for the kicks, or he really thinks he's found something and he is actively lying to other drivers to try and snooker them. Another interesting thing to note is that last night in the Porsche Cup race, we had an accident in the first 3 laps between Pedro and, Pedro, Breezy Rain, and Tempered Ship in the top 3. That brought out a yellow early on, but after that, the race was clean and green. We have had no yellow flags thus far in this race tonight, though. So Violet's actually gone out here for a lot longer. He's now on his 11th lap. So Violet seems to think that with a little bit of effort, he can make the tires last 10 laps tonight. So the numbers aren't looking great, but Violet might try and go for a 2-stop strategy. Pit on lap 11, pit on lap 21, or maybe 22 even, and then just run an 11-lap stint on the mediums. It would be an awful strategy on pace, but cutting out a pit stop, cutting out potentially 2 pit stops when the rest of the field looking at pitting at least twice, that would be wild. And now here's the other thing. Les Railgun has just caught Manuel Pedro on circuit. Now this Ford is going to be on some worn out tires as well. They're still soft, so it's still going to be nice and sticky and able to make stuff happen. But Railgun is not in a position that you should be able to easily blow by. If he gets by, it's going to be because Pedro runs wide like he just did in Spoon. Yeah, I think the tire fall-off has just gotten so bad. Pedro can't keep that car on the racing line anymore. Railgun goes right by Pedro as if he wasn't even there. Almost like when you see a prototype overtake a GT in a WEC race there. Twilight has already pulled out a 6.5-second lead on Violet this lap alone. Railgun now closes in on Violet, clears him without issue, going through 130R. Yeah, the laps just are absolutely atrocious for the Ferraris, but they have gone 11 laps. And now here they come, Violet and Pedro paying out of the 3rd and 4th positions now. So could Violet and Pedro be on a 2-stop strategy? 22 laps to the end. I mean, if they're really confident, well, it'll be 20 laps to, yeah, it'll be 21 laps to the end. If they're really confident, they could try running the softs. 3 instead 7 laps each on the soft compound tires. They would be dealing with some fall off near the end there. But maybe that will be their strategy. That would be extra pit stops, but that would give them quite a bit of extra pace. Thing is, when they come out of pit lane here, they're going to be behind almost everybody. The only driver ahead of them is going to be Weiza, who pitted about a lap or 2 ago, I believe. I believe he pitted 2 laps ago. So Weiza, they're going to have to catch and pass Weiza as quickly as possible. But Weiza's kind of running his own race, so Again, Violet and Pedro are kind of the wild cards, and depending on where they end up in the end of this race, it could really torpedo Railgun's shot at a second-place result. If both Violet and Pedro end up ahead of Railgun, but Twilight still walks off with this win like we know he's going to, that could really make things aggravating for Railgun here. But your leader at this stage of the event is Dex Twilight. Look at his tires. He's at 45% wear. He only went 6 laps earlier. Well, went 7 laps. Well, yeah, no, he only went about 6 laps earlier, but now as the track is starting to cool off and the track is starting to rubber in, the tires are going to last a little bit longer here. So we're going to go ahead and spend a flying lap on board with our race leader, Dex Twilight, here around Suzuka. Give you an idea what a lap is like. And the fastest driver and the fastest car in the field will be back shortly at Suzuka. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here. And our Fords, Les Railgun and Tempered Ship, have just jumped back into the pits here. They're already at 53% wear, but Twilight is staying out long. So I guess Twilight is now on a harder compound tire, and Railgun only jumped onto the softer tires. He is pitting with Breezy Rain and Tempered Ship. So, yeah, Twilight on a harder compound set of rubber right now. No, he's not that much harder. He's just going longer. He's just going in an extra entire lap on the soft tires. Huh. So the Aston, which we don't typically think of as being good on the worn out rubber, basically arguably the only real weakness the Aston has, doesn't seem to be an issue for Twilight. He has ran another lap. He's not the only one. Dex Kalula in second, also staying out a little bit longer. Then you have Maze here in third. He's also staying out a little bit longer. So now we're starting to see some splitting on the main strat. Now, one other thing this does, NDL Violet, where is this going to put him? Well, he is now right behind Wiza still, and they are about 2 seconds behind Les Railgun. So Violet's caught Wiza, but cannot get by him. And this traffic is really kind of torpedoing any shot that Violet had of running down the likes of Railgun here. You just cannot pass here at Suzuka. The circuit is so downforce focused and technically focused that making overtakes happen is almost impossible unless there's a massive tire life difference. Finally gets alongside that BMW. Big twitch by Wiza. Violet pulling alongside him, trying to go the long way around this big curved straightaway here. As Breezy Rain, who's gone by, and now Dex Twilight pits out of lead. So yeah, he went a lap longer than the Fords, which is something you almost never hear this season. And finally, Violet completes the overtake on Wiza. And now that is not Pedro behind him, though. That is Breezy Rain, who he is trying to fight with the Ferrari, so the Chevys can bring home third in the Manufacturers Championship. So Twilight's pitting, Kalula is pitting, Maze is pitting this time by. I imagine Car Matthews is going to be pitting this time by as well. No, Car Matthews stays out for another lap. So now we're going to have our third different leader, and it's going to be Car Matthew. Oh, no, maybe not. Twilight might be far enough ahead. It may not matter. Twilight's coming out of the pit lane now. Where is Car Matthew in relation to Twilight? He's coming right in and immediately gets caught off guard. He could not overtake him. So that basically settles it. Yeah, Twilight's won this race by default. He is an entire pit stop ahead of basically the entire field now. Car Matthew doing well to get himself up into the second position at the moment. He is on a harder compound tire right now. So Matthews running the alternate strategy in the Ford camp. Bruno Mello YZ in third. He is now up to the spot highest he's been all day. He is also on a harder compound tire right now. But the sheer pace that Twilight has means that strategies just do not matter. You will not fight for the win as long as Twilight starts one of these races. You basically have to wreck him twice and have him be on a bad strategy for him to lose a race. Or just have him not show up, obviously. But the interesting thing, Railgun is fourth now, and he pitted a lap earlier than Twilight, so he now has to fight to get by all these cars on an alternate strategy. Twilight is just clicking off laps in clean air. Again, Railgun keeps catching traffic. He has to keep overtaking them, and every time he does, it raises the risk of something going bad for Railgun. He needs to come home second. He could get away with coming home with third tonight, but then he would be required to finish second with no mistakes in the following two events. And mind you, if there ends up being a tie in the championship between Railgun and Twilight at season's end, Twilight would win that tiebreaker by virtue of having more wins than Railgun does right now. Fifth place is Dex Kalula, but he is 4 seconds behind Railgun, not in a position to do anything. And you have Violet, who's trying to close in on him. Breezy Rain and Manuel Pedro having a little fight there for 7th and 8th spot. So Kalula also ahead of Violet after the pit stop is interesting, but Maze has fallen out of the top 10 after he made his stop. Chevys just do not seem to be able to do anything today unless you are Breezy Rain. Very interesting reversal of fortunes early in the season. It was Maze who was the real leader in the Chevy camp, but dare I say, we may be seeing a mid-season passing of the baton as Breezy Rain has really come into his own in that Chevy camp. And while he hasn't won a race in either Porsche Cup or GT3 Pro, he has put together quite a run of podiums in both series. Trying to keep Manuel Pedro behind. These two were two of the guys fighting for the win last night, but Pedro blew him out of the water. But now that they're in different cars with specialized tunes, Breezy is doing a lot better job keeping Pedro behind. And they're both running ahead at tempered chip as well at the moment. No yellow flags in tonight's race. Les Railgun finally gets alongside and overtakes Bruno coming through second. Degner. Yeah, Bruno's at 54% wear on the front tire, so he's going to have to pit sooner rather than later. Interesting thing for the Ferrari, hearing that they're bringing up their fronts more than the rears. That is not how it normally goes for this team. All right, now the interesting thing for Railgun, he is running third. It is Car Matthews, his teammate, in second. They are on alternate strategies. If Railgun catches Matthews, does Matthews just move over and let Railgun through and fight for the championship? Or is he going to do what Tempered Chip did and actually keep him behind for quite some time? Gap between Twilight and Railgun now up to about 7.5 seconds. And when the leader hits the start-finish line, we will be halfway through tonight's race. Sun is completely set, the lights are on, the track is cooling off, and that will help salvage some tire life, which will be great news for the Ferrari drivers. And it looks like Matthews is paying this time by, so he has made it exactly to the halfway point. So it looks like he is on a soft medium strat, and I imagine you could probably go 2 more stints, one more stint on medium, 1 more stint on the soft to the end. So that would be a 3-stop strategy for Car Matthews. Bruno now moves his Ferrari back up into the 3rd spot, so he is really getting some life out of the mediums on his Ferrari, and Violet has gained some life out of his as well. He is up to 4th now, and he's not even at the 50% wear mark yet. He will be shortly, but he's not there yet. He is still pulling ahead of Breezy Rain. Wiza went ahead and pitted this time. So did Manuel Pedro. So Bruno and Violet and Pedro all on alternate strats now as this race is going on. We're seeing these strategies continue to mutate and unfold in different directions here. Twilight is your leader. He has already made his second stop. We believe he's just going to go all soft tires all the way through because he has the sheer pace to make that work. And even if he chose to run a stint on the mediums later on in the event, the gap that he has on everybody else means that it's not really going to be an issue for him. And that, coupled with the fact that he is actually ahead of the Ford's entire life. Indiel Violet now being caught by Breezy Range, just as Violet is starting to run down Bruno ahead of him. So Violet at 54% wear, Bruno on what we believe is a harder compound tire, he's at 62% wear. So Bruno's gonna have to pit this lap, but I don't know what Violet's gonna do. Is he gonna join Bruno in the pits, or is he gonna try and stay out for another lap? Pulls up behind the number 28 Rolex, now goes to the left-hand side. Should be an easy overtake for him. What if Breezy Rain, will he be able to get by either of these Ferraris this time by? Through 130R this time, closes in right behind. Bruno gets to his inside, which will give him the long way around as they come to the KCO Triangle, but he goes nice and deep under braking, side by side. There's a bit of contact between the two of them, but Breezy completes the overtake. Bruno's trying the crossover on exit, but I don't think the handling is there. The tires are just cooked out. Shockingly, though, Bruno's actually staying out another lap, and he is still in Breezy's draft right now as they go down the front straightaway. Violet now back into the third position, running his own wildly alternate strat right now, but he is 14 seconds out from Twilight, 6 seconds out from Railgun right now. Doesn't look like anyone pitted this lap, interestingly enough. We on a very long green flag run at the moment. Green flag run that has lasted since the start of this race, so we are flying through tonight's event. Through this big sweeping left-hander, but the Ferrari will have the inside line. Doesn't matter though, Breezy has now completed the overtake on Violet. Breezy's only at 43% tire wear, and Violet, his tires are going to be hurting now. He's going to be in the 60% range, I think. Yeah, 62% range. So Violet's now just going to be losing ground for the rest of this lap due to tire fall off. Tempered Ship has just gotten by Bruno Mello, who is also now dealing with massive tire fall off. He's at 67% wear. According to this, Bruno still has a whole lot of fuel in the tank as well, so that extra ballast in terms of liquid weight in the rear of the car is not going to be helping him any at either. So Breezy Rain now moves himself up into the third spot, but while Breezy and Violet have been fighting, that makes it a little bit easier for Railgun, clicking off laps in clean air, to come home in second. Twilight continues to lead at the head of the field by about 8.5 seconds over Railgun. So Twilight is pulling roughly about half a second a lap on Railgun as this has gone on. Roughly, the numbers aren't quite that, but it's close enough that comparison works. And Violet goes way off there in 130R. I think the tires are really good. Yeah, he's at the 67% range now. He'll have to come in this time, and that's exactly what he's going to do. I imagine Bruno Mello's pitting. Yep, he will pit as well. So now Tempered Ship in that Ford GT will cycle back up into the fourth spot on this harder compound tire. Interesting thing, though, he only has 5% left in the fuel tank, 47% of the tire wear. So he's going to be pitting not because of tires, but because of fuel as this goes on here. Mays, though, staying out another lap again, this time an extra lap over the Ferraris as he is on a much harder compound tire. Violet, after completing his pit stop, where is he going to be in relation to the rest of the field? That is Lil Kid Suave, who's just gone by him now, and he'll have Dex Klula behind. Suave's going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Suave on probation. One more incident, he is effectively banned from X League permanently. Mind you, he is our defending Porsche Cup Series champion, but a series of incidents in the Porsche Cup races and GT3 Pro races has caused him to miss 3 different weekends of racing due to bans, and now he's on probation to the end of the season. I would imagine it would be in Suave's interest to just let Violet go as smoothly and cleanly as possible, just so he does not run the risk of getting a ban. So Twilight continues to lead at the head of the field. He's at 46% wear right now. So Twilight might be able to go 7 laps on his tires without too much issue here. So if he can go 7 laps on the tires, you carry that out to 21. Yeah, if he pits, well, that's Railgun paying out a second now, and Breezy Rain paying out a third, Tempered Chip paying out a fourth. I think Maze is probably going to have to pit out a fifth as well. Jesus, Twilight. So no, Maze will probably be able to stay out for quite a bit longer, but I don't know if he's going to be close enough to get a position over Railgun here. But in any case, if Twilight pits at the end of this lap, he'd have 12 laps left. He could throw on a set of soft tires, go 6 laps, throw on another set of soft tires, go another 6 laps. Wouldn't have to worry about tire fall if that's too atrocious here. He is at 51% now, so yeah, I think for Twilight, the best option for him would be to pit at the end of this lap, and then pit again 6 laps later. He'll be fine to the end. He is closing in on IV Franks, a newcomer here. Tempered Chip, after completing his pit stop, falls back to the 8th spot now behind NDL Violet. Violet has caught Suave. How long is it going to take him, though, to get by traffic here? Through the S's, and he's going to lunge on Suave. Suave trapped on the outside, but he has the power, puts it down, and gets back ahead of the Ferrari before they come up to the Degner corners. So Violet, this strat, I don't hate the strat, but the problem is he keeps catching traffic, and that has really been derailing any shot he had. I think if we were running a completely small field with only like 6 or 7 cars, this strat would probably get Violet a 2nd place result. But the field is packed as it is, with everyone running different strategies all day long, and overtakes being so hard to make happen here. If Violet pulls off a top 5 result, I'd be impressed. In 2nd place is Maze, but Railgun is running him down. This should be an easy overtake, though. Maze is on older, harder compound tires. Railgun is on nice, fresh, sticky softs. Railgun pulls up behind Maze. Not able to make the move, though, through 130R that time by. Twilight leads by 37 seconds. And what more, he's gone a lap longer again. He's just basically slapping the entire field with a large bratwurst with how he has been destroying everybody today. Finally to the inside. Railgun gets to the inside of Maze as they fire off down to turn number 1. The Ford is able to go plenty deep and clears the Chevy without issue. Maze is still going to be out here on track for a little bit longer with this rubber. But whatever alt strategy Maze is on, it's got to be interesting, because it seems like the number 1 driver, or at least who we think of being the number 1 driver, both the Chevy camp and the Ferrari camp, Maze and Violet, are both on wildly alternate strats compared to the rest of the field. The difference, though, is that the Chevy camp, while they've lost 1 driver in the form of Savage, Breezy is still running relatively competitively. Top 5 is possible for him. For the Ferrari camp, Bruno and Pedro have both fallen well out of the top 10. Tempered Chip has now cleared Little Kid Suave now. Dex Lula staying just a little bit ahead of Wiza. Wiza came into this race very confident that he had a strategy that could get him a result better than last week at Spa. But as this is going on, that does not look like that is in the cards tonight. And Twilight finally pitting out of the lead with 11 laps to go. 66% wear on those tires. Yeah, if Twilight's going 7 laps on the rubber, 50% of 7 is 3.5. Could Twilight throw on the mediums and just not pit again for the rest of the race? He would lose some time to Railgun, but he is so far ahead of Railgun, it really doesn't matter. Maze has completely lost touch with Railgun right now. He's actually on track to maybe be caught by Breezy before he makes his pit stop here. I look at Breezy, who is still ahead of Cars Matthew, and both of them are ahead of Violet. Breezy's going to be out here for a while. Violet here in 6th position right now as the night has fallen Pace just is not there. It's all falling apart. He just cannot make overtakes in the field. Suave is now paying in the 8th position. So that briefly moves Kalula up to 8th, Weiza to 9th, and Bruno briefly cracks the top 10 again. Violet unable to get by Car Matthew in the Ford. He gets alongside him, though, on the run up to the S's. Goes deep, and there's a little bit of contact between the two of them, and there's contact again. Violet backs out after that second bit of contact. It works out for Breezy, lets him open up the gap a bit, and that also is going to bring Tempered Chip into fray here. And side by side again between the Ferrari and the Ford, and around the outside, just as they exit the S's, goes the Ferrari. Violet finally clears Matthews. And now Chip will have a run on his teammate Matthews. Ford camp not looking nearly as strong as they did at Spa, but they are in a position to still bring home a great number of points compared to Aston Martin. Because Aston, while they're going to win the race, their next best driver is going to be behind all of the rest of the Ford drivers by the way this is going here. Bruno just barely ahead of Weiza for the moment. So Bruno back at a Weiza, and he is trying to climb his Ferrari back up the grid order now. Gap between Twilight and Railgun is down to 6.6 seconds. So yeah, I think Twilight might have chosen to put on a harder compound tire here. Yeah, with only 6% wear in a lap, I think Twilight has thrown on a hard compound tire. Well, not the hards, but a medium compound tire to be exact. He is likely planning on not pitting to the end of this race. Every other driver on track has another pit stop to make. Twilight is going to win this race by an absurd margin. Real quickly, we go ahead and look at time penalties. Your top 3 drivers right now, Twilight, Railgun, and Maze. No time penalties for any of them. 1.8 seconds for Breezy Rain, 0.6 for Violet, 3 for Car Matthew, 1.4 for Temper Ship, 2 for Kalula. Bruno Mello, YZ has no time penalties. Pretty good for someone in his first race. Weiza 4, no time penalties. Suave, 3.5 seconds. Pedro, 2.7 seconds. And then Franks has no time penalties either right now. So yeah, while Railgun is now finally getting a chance to take chunks of the lead away from Twilight, he is bound to make another stop. There'll be 9 laps to go when you hit the line here. You could pit at the end of this lap, throw on a set of mediums, and be guaranteed they'll last you to the end here. Twilight is honestly in a position, I don't think Twilight could make the mediums last 11 laps normally, but he's going to have such an absurd gap over the rest of the field, it won't matter. He can probably afford to bleed off 10 seconds in the final lap and still be fine. So Violet has cleared both of these Fords of Ship and Matthews, and he is now in clean air for the moment, but he is already at 44% wear on the front tires. Closing in on Breezy Rain just ahead, and mind you, they have just cleared lap traffic in the form of Ivy Franks there. So Violet still needs to get by Franks. Do it as quickly and effectively as possible here. Gap between the top 2 now down to 5.5 seconds. So Railgun taking chunks out of Twilight's lead, but he's going to have to pit again. Twilight is not. So Railgun could honestly close by a second a lap, and that's just not going to be enough because he's going to fall another 25 or so seconds behind when he makes a stop. Weiza 4 now paying out of the top 10 results, top 10 spots. But Weiza is well clear of Lil Kid Suave right now, and will probably not have to pit again because he will just be able to run the mediums to the end here. I just don't think Weiza is in a position to finish any higher than 9th or 10th, more than likely. Violet still trying to run down on Breezy Rain. To his credit, Maze on this alternate strategy has got him in the 3rd position. He'll likely pit at the end of this lap. And when he pits, it'll be 8 laps to go. I don't think you could really make the softs last 8 laps. I think Maze would have to throw on the mediums. If he does choose to stay out another lap, maybe he could throw on the softs on boost to the end, but he's going to lose a bunch of time this lap as well. Already, Breezy Rain and Violet are rapidly weighing him down. Breezy is in a position that he will not have to pit at the end of this lap. He can pit at the end of the following lap, though, throw on a set of softs then, and then just bum rush it to the end in the final 6 laps. I think Breezy has a very serious shot at a podium result tonight. Then you have Les Railgun in second position in the Ford GT. Second is what he needs if he wants to bring home this championship run. He just needs to be second to Twilight. He can let Twilight win the rest of the race of the season. If Railgun finishes second the rest of the season, he will still lock up the championship due to Twilight missing last week at Spa. We're going to go ahead and take a Twitch-mandated ad break, and while we do, we're going to spend a flying lap on board with Les Railgun, your points leader coming into tonight's event. We'll be back momentarily here at Suzuka. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you back here to Suzuka. We are in the last 9 laps of the event, last 6 laps, about last 7 laps now. And Les Railgun paying out a second. He closed that gap down to 3.5 seconds on Twilight. Twilight on a harder compound tire. He's just going to continue to bleed out time for the rest of this race, but as long as we stay green, he'll be fine. Les Railgun, after making his pit stop, where is he on track? That is second place driver Breezy Rain right there. It looks like Kalula has actually ended up jumping Les Railgun, interestingly enough. So Kalula ever so briefly ahead of Railgun. Now he's on some worn out tires. Maybe he can hold up Railgun for a bit. I don't know how much it's going to matter. Interesting thing, Breezy stayed out for another lap here. So when he pits, he'll have exactly 6 laps. This Chevy will not have to worry about any tire fall off. Everyone else, even the Fords, will have to deal with some tire fall off. So again, Breezy might be on track for a legitimate podium, if not an outright second. Again, that's really the best he can do when Dex Twilight's in the field. Tempered Chip in 6th, just ahead of NDL Violet. Violet still cannot seem to clear traffic effectively. He's on an interesting strap, but does not have the ability to make overtakes. And I don't think that's a car thing. That's just the nature of the beast at Suzuka. When it comes to the Ferrari camp, Violet is the highest in the Ferrari 7th, and Bruno Mello is next highest in 9th. Compared to the Chevys that they are fighting, well, right now, Mays runs in 5th, and he has already completed his final stop. Breezy Rain is 2nd. He still has a stop to make, but even after he makes his stop, he'll likely only fall to about the 3rd or 4th position, if that. So Chevy is putting on, well, it's not that Chevy is putting on a great defense against the Ferrari camp. It's just that the Ferrari camp is not really performing at the level they need to try and steal 3rd in the drivers and the manufacturers championship, from the Chevy team. And there is Breezy Rain pitting out of the 2nd position. And I imagine Kalula will pit at the end of this lap as well. So both Kalula and Breezy Rain will be on fresh, soft tires, blitzing it to the end. And the fight between Ford and Aston Martin, all the Fords are still running top sixes. Kalula is honestly having another fantastic run, but it's just not going to be enough. He really needs to figure out a way to finish ahead of Railgun. I just do not see that happening. Railgun is going to be on soft tires, and while they're going to be falling off in the final lap, he is going to have a gigantic gap on Kalula to the end here. And he still is going to have to manage the way by Breezy Rain and Maze. Maze might not be too hard to deal with. Maze has to go 8 laps on whatever set of rubber he is on. If he's on the softs, it's going to be difficult. If he's on the mediums, well, I imagine that Kalula could possibly just run him down with sheer pace. The gap between Maze and Kalula right now is about 13 seconds, but Kalula's going to have a lot of other cars he'll have to overtake between now and the end. Yeah, Kalula is going to have to figure out a way to get by a lot of drivers on track. Now, some of these guys may have to pit again, but the vast majority, I think, will have already completed their final stop. Violet finally makes an overtake on Tempered Ship in the middle of the S's, interestingly enough. So Violet now up into the 5th spot. He is 4 seconds. I have more like 3.5 seconds behind Breezy Rain. Does he have anything for Breezy tonight, though? Again, even if he gets Breezy, then he'll have to figure out a way by Maze. I'm not saying it can't happen, but Violet has been relatively weak when it comes to overtaking cars today. He has had good pace. I think his strategy has not been awful, but he just keeps catching traffic, something awful. And between Twilight and Railgun, as the leader comes to the line, with 5 laps to go, Railgun would have to close on Twilight at the rate of 6 seconds a lap without fail for Twilight to steal this win from Railgun. I think we know who's going to finish first and second tonight. The question is just going to be, is it going to be a Ferrari or a Chevy that takes that final spot on the podium? And then you do have Tempered Ship right back there in 6th. If Violet throws it away, he might still have something to say against the Chevys as well today. And then you have Cars Matthew runs another 4 seconds back. But I think it's really Violet versus the Chevys, and then Tempered Ship is the outside pick if that fight ends up becoming catastrophic in some way. Manuel Pedro now goes a lap down after making this stop very late. Not sure what the problem is here. I don't see any damage. His tires look good. His fuel looks good. So I'm not sure why Pedro is making this stop. But this is going to trap Pedro a lap down behind even Ivy Franks. And for the Ferrari team in their quest against the Chevys, this basically takes a shotgun to their kneecap, metaphorically speaking. Tempered Ship still reign behind Violet. Violet is closing down slowly on Breezy Rain. But again, catching is one thing, overtaking is another. And then Maze runs in 3rd position right now, about 4 seconds ahead of Breezy. If Tempered Ship gets alongside Violet and these two start fighting, I think the Chevys will be locked into a 3rd and 4th place result. And yes, Savage didn't even finish 10 laps. He was the first driver to lag out. So that's not going to help him, obviously, but still, that's 2 very good points finishes versus 1 acceptable points finish and 2 awful points finishes for the Ferrari team. Now, where does that put the Chevys against the Astons? Not very good, because Kalula is 9th and is still likely to pick up another position or 2 as this goes on. Kalula is on soft tires. He's going to have no issue with tire fall off on the run to the end here. He sees Bruno ahead of him, and just another 4 seconds up the road is Car Matthews in his own Ford GT, who's also got quite a bit of tire wear himself right now. I'm more shocked at this gap from 1st to 3rd, 40.7 seconds. Twilight could make another pit stop for funsies, and the only driver who would get ahead of him is Railgun. This has been Twilight has dominated the field many times throughout the season. This has been his biggest dominant performance all event long. Even against Railgun, he has 28.5, nearly 29 seconds. So yeah, Twilight keeps getting faster over Railgun. Well, not truly. He is losing ground to Railgun technically, but at this point, he has basically pulled roughly a second a lap on Railgun. Yes, Railgun is on nice soft tires and is going to be able to burn down the nicotine on more to cut that gap down and maybe get the fastest lap in the race. But it just kind of doesn't really matter because there's no way in hell that you cut out 28 seconds in 4 laps. That is cutting out 7 seconds a lap without fail. That's just not happening. Violet's still trying to play defense against Tempered Ship. He has gotten to about 2.5 seconds behind Breezy Rain right now. Again, the interesting thing, Breezy will not have to worry about any tire fall off to the end of this race. Violet, I do not think that applies to him. That Ferrari will have some tire fall off, as he is still trying to keep Tempered Ship behind him. And May's on track for another podium. No laps led tonight for him, but he is back on the podium run, it seems. Big run-off circuit there by car Matthew. Just went a little bit too deep into the hairpin that time by... No, not Matthew, by Tempered Ship. Matthew's way farther back. Kalula is still closing on Mello, but not quite at the speed that I thought he would have caught this Ferrari. The Ferrari's at 35% wear on his tires right now, and Kalula in 9th is only at 26%. I would have thought the Kalula would have caught Mello already, but that has just not been the case. So overall, in both the Drivers and the Manufacturers Championship, the way this race is playing out is kind of taking any drama out of both of those fights. Manuel Pedro being well outside of the points position, while Mays is on track for a top 5 for sure, if not a top 3 result. That will easily put Mays back in the 3rd, well clear of Pedro with 2 races left after tonight. And now here we come. It looks like Tempered Ship might have a run on Violet. Violet's now losing ground to Breezy at this point as well. 3 laps to go this time by, and Railgun did not close on Twilight at all that lap. That gap is still 28 seconds. So yeah, now Railgun would have to close by 9.5 seconds a lap over these last 3 runs. The only way you do that is if Twilight basically wrecks the car and chooses not to pit. And we know Twilight's going to hemorrhage a bunch of time on this final lap, but so is Railgun. Big twitch, and Violet nearly goes off there. Tempered Ship really working him over. Again, with Mays and Breezy being 3rd and 4th, if Kalula can't get any better than 9th, the Chevys have another good run compared to the Astons. It's just they're way behind in the points. They need to be doing another spot or 2 better each, or they need Twilight to keep missing races. Manuel Pedro down just making a 2nd pit stop very late. Not sure what's this strategy. Oh, he's been involved in an accident. That is some horrific damage for Pedro. So yeah, this actually moves Franks up to a 12th place finish by the looks of it. Violet's opened the gap on Tempered Ship a bit, and their leader has crossed the start-finish line once again. So it is now 2 laps left. Railgun has cut the gap down to 26 seconds. Again, 13 seconds a lap. That's not happening unless Twilight runs out of fuel or crashes the car. Now look at Twilight right now, 20% in the fuel tank. His tires are at 58%, but he doesn't have to go super fast. He can go at 80% pace just to keep the car on track. He'll be fine. I look at Les Railgun, 2nd place in this Ford GT, 46% on the tire life, 15% in the fuel tank. Probably will take another second out this lap, but not much more than that. Violet still holding station over Tempered Ship. If anything, he's actually pulled on Ship a little bit that time by. Kalula has just about caught Mello, but he's just not had the sheer pace we thought he would on the newer tires. And while it's really probably going to come in on this last lap, he'll probably get Bruno, but I don't think he would be able to get Car Matthews. I think Kalula can only go for 8th. Still, I think that will be just enough that, coupled with Twilight's victory, I think will shore up the Aston Martin team over the Chevys tonight. Suave actually back ahead of Weiza on track, so for all the talk that Weiza ahead, confident that he thought he could get a better result tonight, does not look like it's going to happen. He is at 65% tire wear right now. Little Kid Suave just ahead of him. He's only at 59. Neither of them are in a great position on tires, but Suave is in a decisively better position than BMW. So another race with another race that does not have a top 10 result for the BMW team. All right, out of the final corner, across the start-finish line to take the start of the final lap, Dex Twilight leads by 24 seconds over Les Railgun. You're not going to see anybody close 24 seconds to lap unless Twilight had an accident or lagged out or something like that. Credit where it's credit is due. Railgun is doing a good job cutting that gap down, but it's just too little too late. Between Violet and Tempered Chip as these drivers are coming to the white flag. Mind you, our second place driver only now crossed the white line for the white flag. Maze runs in third with Breezy in fourth. Maze is coming down. He's only now about to take the white flag, mind you. I am interested to see between Maze and Breezy, would Maze move over to let Breezy through or not? Maze is at 67% wear on his tires. Breezy, who runs right behind, is only at 49. We could see a swap between these two. Now, one thing Pedro would really like to see that, because that would make it a little bit easier for Pedro to potentially get back by Maze in the Drivers' Championship. And there we go. So Breezy overtakes Maze on circuit there on the final lap in the S's. Change it, the gaps to penalties now. Twilight, 1 second penalty. Breezy ran 1.8. Maze, 1.80. Violet, 1.9. That is still better than what Tempered Chip right behind him has, though. As long as Violet doesn't go off circuit or anything, fifth should still be his, but he is not close enough to Maze, I think, to get him and outrun that time penalty. Although Maze is really hemorrhaging time now. 6.7 seconds for Little Kid Suave, while Wiza has nothing, so maybe on time penalty countback, Wiza can nip Suave for 10th. We'll try to keep an eye on that. Kalula has gotten by Bruno Ymello as anticipated, but he is not looking like he's going to be able to outrun the time penalty there. Well, we're not even going to look at Twilight as he comes to the checkered flag, because there is a potential swap for position here for fourth on track. That would be interesting, but Twilight comes across the start-finish line, wins by an absurd margin tonight. Here comes the move. Breezy on the outside. The car is slow. Violet to the inside. Neck and neck, side by side between the two of them. But Violet has to complete this overtake and then pull a ridiculous gap on the Chevy before, in just one final braking zone. I don't know if he can do it. He goes plenty deep in the 130R. Maze is wide. Boy, is Maze wide through there. And that's a Ford going by. That's Tempered Chip going by Maze now as well. Tempered Chip gets right behind Violet as they go through the KCO triangle, but Violet puts the power down. He's through Railgun, comes home second as expected. Breezy Rain will come up third without issue, and Violet goes off! Violet goes off in the final corner! A completely self-inflicted mistake! Is that going to be enough to take the result away from him? They all cross the line! Maze gets fourth back on time penalty. Violet is fifth. Tempered Chip falls to sixth on time penalty. Kalula actually overtook Matthews on time penalty, so Kalula got 7. Matthews 8th. Bruno in 9th. Now between Suave and Wiza. That will be the next big question, because that is a 7-second difference between the two of them in time penalties. Suave is coming to the line right now to finish his run. I think Wiza might be just close enough to clip Suave for 10th. He does. Wiza 4 clips Suave for 10th position there. So Suave is scored in 11th. 12th, a lap down will be Ivy Franks, and 13th, 2 laps down will be Manuel Pedro. Dex Twilight wins again this season. It is his, sixth? Yeah, this is his 6th win this season. He closes the gap between himself and Railgun, but not enough. We're going to take a Twitch mandated ad break, and when we come back, we'll try to talk with our top 5 finishers tonight. All right, can you hear me? All right, go ahead and include your audio when you can. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Suzuka. Our race is over, and your winner, unsurprisingly, is Dex Twilight. But first, we want to go ahead and talk with our third place finisher, Breezy Rain. Breezy, quite an interesting event there, kind of all up and down and all around through the field. But again, another weekend back-to-back podium results. You are really on something, Breezy. What are you on, and where can I get some of this?
I think it's just putting the time to get a good tune is what's doing this.
All right. Well, another podium result for the Chevys. You guys are You guys should be clear, or relatively well clear of the Ferraris for third in the manufacturers, with 2 races left. What is the goal in these final 2 races for the Chevy team?
Let me check standings. Yeah, I think we're just gonna sit at P3. There's no chance of catching Aston.
So, what's the goal in that case for the team?
Good results.
All right, can't get much more straightforward than that. Anything else you want to say before we go ahead and wrap up the broadcast tonight?
No.
All right, well, Breezy Rain started in 3rd position, finished in 3rd position tonight. Respectable run from the Chevys, but now I want to go ahead and also talk with our 4th place finisher. It's Maze. Maze, you came home with a 4th place result. Came really close to 3rd place, but the tires just gave up on you on the end. What do you have to say about your run out there tonight?
I'm happy where I ended up. I'm kind of sick at the moment, so I didn't practice at all. Like, I didn't, aside from doing BOP for like the last 2 weeks straight, I haven't touched Suzuka or done any laps or anything. And so I came in with no practice or nothing, no strategy. I'm usually like writing down on a pen and paper, like testing out different strats and like getting numbers and stuff. And I didn't do any of that, so I had no idea what I was doing jumping into the race. I got like 3 laps of practice in Navy before the quali started, and then yeah, I qualified like shit, and then yeah, I just had to kind of wing it and doing some mental gymnastics of math in my head as I'm trying to focus on racing. I was like, maybe I should throw on some mediums here and do soft, medium, soft, and see if I can just struggle my way through the last lap. I was getting caught up behind some people on my second stint. I got caught behind one of the Fords for way too long. Just couldn't find a way to get around them and lost probably, I'm not exaggerating, like 8 seconds or more. So unfortunate, probably could have P3, but I'm happy a Chevrolet was in that spot nonetheless. So yeah, happy with my result for sure.
All right, you are in a fight with Manuel Pedro for 3rd in the Drivers' Championship. Pedro was just 2 points ahead of you coming into tonight's race, but with you coming home 4th and Pedro being 2 laps down 13th, you'll be back over Pedro. 2 races left. Will you be able to hold Pedro off for these last 2 races?
I mean, I hope so. I don't know. The Ferrari just got. I've been doing a lot of work to that for the BOP, so it just got a different build, which should be a bit more competitive. So that'll play a factor. But I mean, all I can do is try my best. There's a little bit of like, I don't want to say a rivalry, but there's been some incidents with him, just like and myself. So I definitely don't forget those things, but I'm not, trying to just like wipe somebody out either. So, but I don't forget. So, yeah, we'll just have to see how it plays out.
All right, well, 2 races left. There is a fight for 3rd in the Drivers' Championship to keep an eye on. Pedro, thanks for... I'm sorry, Pedro. I'm tired. I've had a hell of a...
Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me.
Maze, thank you very much for jumping in and talking with us. Hopefully you can go get some decent chicken noodle soup and, get some good rest for the rest of the weekend, mate.
Yeah, thank you. Love you.
All right. And now we'll talk with our 5th place finisher, NDL Violet. Violet, you started in 2nd position immediately from the start of the green flag, committed to an alternate strat. You came home 5th. Is that where you wanted to finish, or do you think something better may have been in the cards for you? I mean, to be fair, you have been having a respectable rebound in the standings this season as well. Right now, coming into this race, you're eighth in points. You're obviously going to be clear of Tempered. You'll overtake him in the points. You're clear of Carr Matthews as well. So I think you're going to be even or overtaking him. Breezy Rain might still be ahead of you, as would Maze, but you could still be on track for a sixth place finish in the points if you keep this pace up over these last two races. Well, I will ask one question, then I'll let you go then. In the hypothetical scenario that they do drop the Ferrari, what car would you like to see added to replace the Ferrari then? Only one of them. Only one of them. What is the one that speaks to you in the heart the most? Not even the Acura. Huh, that's interesting. I've in the GT Cat championships that I've broadcasted before in this game, the Acura was usually the best or the second best car. Covered IESC's GT championship. I covered the endurance championship last season for again, I don't remember what they were called, P1R's endurance championship. The Acura was like consistently either the best or second best car. So hearing you say that no, the Acura wouldn't be able to hold up is an interesting testimony. All right. Well, that's the word from Indy Violet. A fifth place result, exacerbated, but he does feel that he got everything out of the car. So that seems to be the word from him. But with that in mind, I'll wrap up our broadcast from Suzuka. Next weekend, we'll be descending on VIR in Virginia, one of the most technical circuits in the game. I highly encourage you to check that out. We still have a championship fight on the line, still have a fight for third, and the Drivers' Championship on the line as well, although the Manufacturers' Championship seems to be just about locked up amounts to the top 4 teams. But until next time, I've been your host for today's broadcast, Insane Leader 13. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Farewell, and goodbye, everyone.
Duplicate team winner.